Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of our podcast, Generational Legacy. And we are excited to have you here. Last podcast, we didn't say who we were.
Oh,
In case you're seeing us for the first time,
yes.
let's introduce ourselves, shall we? Go ahead.
Oh, my name is Gabe. I'm their son. And yep.
And I'm Doug.
And I'm Fiona, and we have another son. He's behind
Josiah.
he's behind the camera, Josiah.
And we are the Pishkas.
We are the Pishkas. I started off. Hi, Josiah. I started off as a Suraj Paul, but now I'm a Pishka. So we're up.
It's a good upgrade.
Yes, it is, right? It's a good addition to my life.
Yes.
Anyway, so we wanted to pick up this episode and talk about a Christian home,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
what that looks like. And it doesn't mean it's a difference between a Christian home and a home where Christians live in.
Yes.
Yes.
There's a distinct
There is a
difference
difference, yeah.
between the two. So the home where Christians live in is where people say they're Christians and they live in the same house. But a Christian home is one whose standard and foundation and the lifestyle is based on the word of God and biblical truths and
Yeah.
Yeah.
priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like the priority part is the
Right.
big deal.
Right.
You know, I was thinking about if we were not in the ministry,
Mm.
would we still be a Christian family?
Yes,
You know,
I would. I don't know
yes.
where you would be.
No, I mean we would follow Christ.
Yes.
We would seek His will, and if we were working secular jobs, we would still be following God
Yeah.
and putting into practice what He gives us.
I feel like the number one thing that derails a Christian home from being a Christian home is the lifestyle and the priority.
Yes.
The
Right.
priority of
What you put
living.
emphasis on.
Right. The priority. So the number one, like in our house, the number one thing for us is God, His house,
Yep.
His people,
Right.
His assignment. All those things are number one. And it had been number one ever since I grew up, because I grew up in a Christian home, not just a house where Christians live.
Right.
I mean, Doug, you got saved later, and you went to college and you did all, but then we got married and we designed our home as a Christian home.
I did not grow up in a Christian home per se. I grew up in a religious home, and I love my parents and they were awesome, but I ended up leading them to the Lord.
Right, because they didn't know.
Right.
See, I
Yeah.
feel like it's even worse when people profess to be Christians,
But don't live like
but
it.
don't live like they're a Christian home.
Right.
Right.
And they get counted as Christians and as part of the statistics.
Yes.
So when you hear the statistics of Christian families, they were brought up in a Christian home and now they're this. Well, they probably weren't brought up in a Christian home.
Right.
Yeah.
They were probably brought up in a home that Christians lived in.
Yes.
That's like saying an artist started singing in church, but now they're not singing in church. It's kind
Right.
of like the same
Yeah,
thing.
because they never had a plan to serve
Yeah.
God with their voice or their music. They were just trying to get access and practice,
Yeah.
so they practice in church. And then whatever big opportunity they got, they took it. Like, this is the thing with
Yeah.
the culture. The culture is whatever the opportunity that comes that makes you the famous and rich person, that's the one you want to take. But here's the thing. God, he was the one that made Abraham rich and famous.
Yes.
And Abraham followed, and Abraham was like the first example of a godly house
Yeah.
in his family line.
Right.
As far as prioritizing God.
And God knew that Abraham was going to teach his children His commands, because that's what God said about him.
Right.
Right. And so that's, for me, I feel like when a child, a teenager, like we have people that we've grown up with, teenagers, leading them to the Lord. We do a school program at our church where we bring kids from the public school. So they're
Yeah.
learning, they're learning profound things about God. They're
Right.
having encounters with God at church.
Right.
But they don't come to the services because their parents have other plans.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if we pick them up, they're still not available to be picked up. You see
Right.
what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
that's where the ball is being dropped in the Christian walk with someone from childhood. And now when they become an adult, their lifestyle has been trained in such a way that the priority of God
Yeah.
has been left out.
Yes.
It's not even considered anymore.
Right.
Yeah, you don't want to train someone in the mediocrity of the kingdom.
That's good.
You want to train them in the excellence of the kingdom.
Yeah.
And I think you have to bring a kingdom culture into your home.
Right. See, that's a good point too. A lot of people will say, well, this is our culture, this is how we grew up or whatever. But like the two of us grew up in completely different culture.
Correct.
And we brought God's culture into our house. Like we have this thing.
Yeah.
If someone's visiting our home and it's a church day, night, whatever, nobody's allowed to stay home in our house if there's church. You can come to with us to church, but you need to go. You can go to your
Yeah.
own church if you want, but you need to be out of our house and in God's house. We don't just like let you hang out.
Yeah,
That's our rule.
We were
Right.
pretty committed to holding God's standards from the very onset of when we got together.
And I think that helped. You know, we were talking earlier in the first episode with you, Gabe, about you hearing God at 14,
Yeah.
following through at 15 with the
Yeah.
first mission trip, and then continuing. Like when you were on that mission trip, I remember we were talking to you on the phone. I think we FaceTimed.
Yeah.
And then when we hung up, I was like, Doug, I think our child's called to be a missionary.
Yeah.
And we started planning and thinking and praying along those lines for you
Yeah.
so that we would know how to handle this and how
Right.
to prepare you. Now we know what it is.
Right.
So now our plan is how to prepare you and train you to properly be a missionary the way God will want you to be.
So both of you grew up in a Christian home.
yes,
Yeah.
you
I
were
did
the
not.
exception.
I'm the
Yeah.
exception this time.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah.
So how has growing up in a Christian home influenced you in your relationship with God?
I mean, it's influenced my entire life. It's influenced my worldview. It's influenced my opinions. It's influenced everything. And I mean, it's influenced my walk with God in the fact of I was introduced to Him and His ways pretty much ever since I was born. I mean, you guys started to pastor when you were pregnant with me,
Right.
and our life looked very different. I could say my life looked very different than other kids my age.
Right.
In the term of, you know, in the early days, you guys had work jobs and pastored, so like those days were like semi-normal. But then once you guys went full time, I was only like 3 or 4 years old, I think, when you went full time. I
Maybe,
don't know
yeah,
how old
5
I
or
was, but
something,
something like
yeah.
that. And you know, we'd spend 12 hours a day at church, 5-6 days a week.
Yes.
You know, sometimes 7 days a week.
Yes.
Sometimes we slept at church because we
Right.
had so many things to
Remember,
do.
well, we did
We-
the overnight prayer.
Yeah, we'd be
Yeah.
there for prayer.
Yeah, we would just
and,
pray
and,
by ourselves.
and this was
overnight.
pre-iPad,
Yes.
like I couldn't just entertain myself with
Yeah.
YouTube or
You had
something
a
like that.
DVD player.
I had
That was in
a
at the
portable
time.
DVD player.
Yeah.
So you guys used to go and travel and speak. I'd be with you, and you know, we'd drive 15, 16 hours to go speak somewhere, you know. And there wasn't a lot of kids my age in our church in our area at that point. And then when we go and travel somewhere, there was no kids at all. I would just be talking with adults. I'd be like 5, 6 years old, just talking to adults about whatever.
You always had great adult conversations when you were
Yeah,
a kid.
and so it just, I mean, it like the trajectory of you guys honoring the will of God in your life affected my life in the sense of like my life looked very different than everyone else that I knew. And for a season I kind of resented that because, you know, I didn't really know any better. I kind of felt like I was missing out, you
Yeah.
know, whatever. But I feel like every pastor's kid goes through that at some point, goes through that feeling.
I was a preacher's kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but I feel like, you know, now I'm very thankful for it, and now because like, and this might be a bit of a hot take, but I do believe that like if your family is involved in something like this, like a church or ministry, I think it makes sense for God to call the generations to that same thing.
Right.
yeah.
And if it's different, it's still complementary.
Correct.
You see what I'm saying?
I mean, find me
Yeah.
somewhere in the Bible where the generations weren't called to the same
Right. Like
group
the
or
tribes.
same
Yeah,
thing.
the tribes were called a
Right.
certain type of profession
Yes.
or certain things.
To-
Each tribe had their own thing.
Today, I mean, I feel like we have a generation who wants to be so disconnected from their family.
Independent, their own person.
Yes, that they will do anything to get away from what their family does. and I mean, there's many reasons for it. Honestly, one of the biggest reasons that I've seen when I've talked to these people, because I'm in that generation of people, so I know, like, one of the biggest things is just everything always felt forced upon them. So, and I mean, it was easy for me to be able to hold that kind of opinion, because, to be honest, I really didn't choose this life. Like, you guys chose this life, and then you chose to have me. So I didn't choose this life, but I was chosen for this life. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
Right.
because again, when you come to the realization my life is not my own, and so God did call me to this life, and he just gave me the opportunity to be in it my whole life.
Right.
Instead of have to start from scratch.
Start from scratch.
Yeah.
And see, that's the thing we're talking about with Generation Legacy. Is that a lot of people have to start from scratch
Right.
because their parents or the people
Missed
before them missed it.
Missed it.
And so, but the other part of it is we can't do this, any call of God as a family. You can't enforce rules and laws without the will factor.
Yes.
Right? But with the way we did it was we had guidelines and rules for the household. But we explained things. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't like, and also we weren't like pretending to be certain things.
Right.
We were living it. We
Yeah.
we weren't like holier than thou on the outside. We lived it. Like, this is what we're
Right,
living.
right.
We had faith together
It was
to believe
never
God
like
for
say
things.
one thing in the pulpit and live
And then
another
live
way at
another
home.
way.
It was
Yeah.
never like that.
It
ever.
was, we were believing God for the same thing. We were growing. We were like expanding all this stuff, but we
Yeah.
did it together, and
Yeah.
it was seen behind the scenes and in front of everyone. And that's how we lived.
And whenever we had a need or a want, we would tell you guys to pray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would pray together.
Like when Josiah was young and
Yeah.
he wanted to go to Hershey Park.
Yeah.
And I said, pray, and we'll agree with you. So he prayed, and it was just a couple months and like 15 tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
For
weeks.
Hershey Park
Yeah, because it
came
was
in.
almost
And we
yeah.
took the whole family,
Yeah, like
cousins,
extended,
uncles,
yeah.
everyone, spouses. We
yeah,
took
went-
everyone to Hershey
went to
Park.
Hershey Park with
Yeah.
these free tickets, and then
Yeah.
everybody was like,
Yeah.
"Thank you for bringing us." We're like, "Thank Josiah." He was like, "Yes, you're welcome. You're
That's
welcome."
And then everywhere we would go with Gabriel, he would get free stuff.
Yeah.
Everywhere, yeah.
We'd go to the post office and they'd give you free stuff.
Yeah.
Everywhere we went.
He went to the barber shop, and he was getting his hair cut, and they gave him like free hair gel. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
we went to a McDonald's one time, and the worker said, "Oh, well, this is something," and it was like a little toy
Yeah.
that they gave you.
So it's like we did life
Yeah.
together. We didn't like have one rule for this person. The other one had a different rule. All of
And
us had the same rules.
We were based in love, not law.
That's a good
That's
point.
very
That's
good.
a very
Yeah.
good point.
Very good.
Because when you just do the law, like there's no love
Yeah.
there. It's like rules and regulations.
Right.
And it's like this legalism.
Law kills it. Love increases it.
Yes.
That's good.
Yes. And then the other thing I feel like, Gabe, is like we could talk about anything.
Yeah.
Like we were always up in each other's business. We got
Oh,
your
yeah.
business so far in deep.
And I mean, like, I mean, I feel like me and mom butt heads the most
Yeah.
throughout my
Yeah.
even sometimes today.
Yeah.
We'll look at it, but it's that like breaking down of those walls,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, it's easy to build walls without anyone knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because and this is a trap, like specifically if your family's involved in ministry.
Mm-hmm.
You put the church above your family.
Mm-hmm.
You put the work of the ministry above your family. That's not the right order.
Right.
It's not the right order.
That's-
And that's what ruins so many
Yeah.
ministry families. I can
Right.
tell you, friend after friend after friend after friend that I've had,
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with same kind of life, pastor's kid, ministry kid, started to walk out the call of God for their life early. But then what happened was the ministry and the church and whatever went before the family. And
Yeah.
it always now the byproduct, I can name person after person, they're no longer walking with God. In terms they're the opposite. Like
Forget the
so
ministry. They're not
correct.
even walking
They're not
with
even
God.
walking with God
Yeah,
anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Like and so that's the thing, like specifically to those who are in ministry and who have families.
Right.
You have to realize your family comes before the ministry.
And the other thing is don't try to put pressure on your children to be perfect.
Correct.
So you don't look bad in the ministry.
Correct.
I mean, there's so many stories I tell about you. He when Gabe was in college and all this stuff. I'm like, yep, I'm going to talk about Gabe again. This is what he did. This is what, but then you give the solution. This is what we did
Yeah.
as a family. This is how I mean, there weren't too many stories to talk
Yeah.
about. Like you didn't make all these major
Yeah.
mistakes. It was just funny things that we talk
Yeah.
about. But the point is we talk about things like,
Yeah.
even if you think you're going to hide something, I get in your business and you know that I'm going to do it. So you're just waiting for the next.
Right.
But when we get in each other's business, it can't be a condemnation type of a thing.
Correct.
Yeah.
It has to be, let's pull it out, let's sort it out, fold it, keep what has to be kept and toss what has to be tossed. And then move on. We move on. That's how we have to do it.
Yeah, we have not hidden ourselves while solving problems.
Right. So we have this rule in the house. You know, I
Yeah.
don't know if you guys know we had this rule, but Doug and I had this rule. Like if we start an argument in front of you guys, we finish it in front of
Yeah.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was gonna say
Because
that,
then you could see how an argument is solved, not how just they're fighting and we
Right.
don't know what happened.
Yeah. And I mean, contrary to pop, like you guys didn't fight a lot
Right.
when like our whole lives. You guys haven't fought a lot. There have been fights, but it wasn't like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But like contrary to what a lot of people think, like they'll go and handle their. No, you guys. I feel like every time you guys fought, not even every time you fought in front of us, I feel like it was always in front of us.
Yeah.
Like just because that's how it happened.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like it's not
Right.
like you were purposely trying to fight in front of us,
Right.
but that's just what happened.
Yeah.
And we always saw how you guys sorted out. you
Yeah.
know?
And that helps you with
Yeah.
your own thing.
It does.
Yeah.
And see, to me, that's part of being part of a Christian
Yeah.
family. It's like, how do you solve a problem in the love walk?
Yeah.
It's like doing real life with God every day.
Right.
And just including God in everything.
Yeah. And
In-
not just
in
saying.
victories and
yeah.
Right.
Challenges and
Yeah.
and I think it's also good to have humility.
Right.
Like
Teachable.
when I did something
yeah.
wrong and I knew like maybe I spoke wrong or said the wrong thing or said it in a harsh way, I would go and apologize. I would
Like we would
apologize
sit
to
down,
my boys.
Yeah, like I forgot what it was
Yeah.
the other day, and you guys were like, "Mom, you should not like that's not something you should be saying." I'm like,
Oh yeah.
okay, yeah, I get
Yeah.
you. Like that's what we
Yeah.
do. We're
Yeah.
like, yeah. Because here's the thing: I always tell people too, in the house, in your house, you should have the worst of the person be there too, and the best, because it's your house. You
Yeah.
should be able to be
where
your
you
worst
live.
in your house. It's where you
Yeah.
live.
Yeah.
And it's where you should be able to just chill out,
Mm-hmm.
be your worst, and not be condemned for it. Like everybody has a worst and everybody has
Yeah.
a best.
Yeah.
So a lot of people teach, like with spouses, you have to be your best for the spouse. Well, when are you going to be your worst? Like, where do
Right.
you get to go and just
Right.
like be your worst?
Right.
It
Right.
should be in your house.
Yeah.
Like you should be able
Yes.
to do that in the house
Correct.
and not feel like you're this terrible, terrible
Correct.
person. And that's the part I feel that's missing in Christian homes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they have to put on this like air of like I'm having faith and I'm perfect and I'm not error. Well, there's things you don't know.
And,
Yeah.
and you know what I think too is we have an atmosphere of encouragement
Right?
where we
Yeah.
encourage each other to be their best or even to improve when they can come up higher.
Yeah.
You know,
So like the correction becomes like
Yeah.
an encouragement to be
Right.
better.
Right.
Yeah.
Not like how dare
it's
you be
out
bad.
of a place of wanting to make the person better.
Right.
yeah,
It's not out of a place of wanting to catch the person doing something
Yeah.
that they should.
Right.
You know
That's
what
a
I'm
good point to say.
saying?
Yeah.
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 Like anytime we say anything to each other that seems like a correction or
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's never to be like, oh, I caught you doing something even though you said this.
Right.
It's like we just want you to be better, and we
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
a way. Because sometimes when you're doing life on your own, you can't see
Right.
when you're in error in something.
Right.
But somebody else, if you let them in, can see that and
Yes.
be able to just point that out, be like, hey, like you shouldn't do that. You know.
Right.
yes. I know my family has helped me become more loose and free.
This is so funny.
Oh man.
Yeah, so we all have our different personalities,
Yes.
our different style.
Yeah.
Even our love languages are different.
Different.
But we know it. We know what each other's love language is. We know what each other's personality is. So we know.
Yeah.
So we know when to give allowance, and we
Yeah.
know when the person is just need to step it up. Like
Yeah.
like there's no allowance needed here. You just need to step it up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So all those things have to be known. But when you have a Christian home, you can walk these things out in love
Yeah.
and not in condemnation.
Right.
Yep. And a Christian home, and I feel like we do this too, is we're striving for the mastery.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're striving to be the best that we can be, and we always want to improve ourselves, and take on different things, and look for ways to increase.
Yeah.
And be a blessing to people.
Yes.
We're not like trying to be better than everybody. I mean, heck, I don't even know what the gauge would be for that. We're
Yeah.
not trying to be better than anybody.
Right.
We're trying to be the best we can be.
Yes.
Right.
And that's the key. I feel like there's no competition with another family. There's no
Right.
like trying to be like that family or trying to be. There's nobody to look at for that. But the Bible, and the Bible is
Yeah.
our mirror.
Yeah.
And we look at the Bible and say, how do we match up to this?
We want to model Jesus's
Right.
example.
Individually.
Yeah.
And then when
Yeah.
you bring it together, it all works out.
Yeah. That's
So-
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we've talked
we
a
covered
good
it.
bit about it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
So guys, till next time. We haven't told people where to find us.
I mean, they're watching us and listening
You're
to us
watching us
now.
right now, but we have websites, we have other
We have
YouTube channels,
Instagram.
Instagram. So we'll try to post those, and then you guys can check out some of our other content.
And we pray for your families.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can have a family that exalts God and does His will, and it's free. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fulfilling.
Yeah.
It's an enriched environment, and you're growing together.
I mean, real quick, plug into a church, your local
Yeah.
church.
Yes.
Participate in the church. Volunteer in something. Have your family volunteer together if you can.
Yeah.
Tithe and give offerings to your church. These are
Yes.
all places. It puts everything in one place. It makes it trackable for your family that you have a place that you call your place where you worship God. And then go from there. Those are like the basic things. And then from there, watch and see what can happen to your family. Anyway,
Yes.
those are just
That's
a few
good.
things from us. God bless you guys. Until next time. Bye-bye.